Thank you for tuning in to the latest edition of the 12 Kyle podcast. Whether you're listening during your commute, while working out, or just relaxing at home, we appreciate you. Every download, every listen, and every subscription means a lot. Up next, the 12 Kyle podcast.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening. Thank you for downloading, and thank you for subscribing to the latest edition of the 12 Kyle podcast. I am your boy 12 Kyle. I want to thank you all for tuning in as you do each and every week. Check this out. On this episode, we have a special guest. In fact, really, she's no guest. She's almost a veteran to the podcast at this point. She's been on here several times. It has been documented that she is a top 3 pediatrician in the world.
No.
But she's not 3. She's not 3. Ladies and gentlemen, my best friend in the Marvel Universe, Dr. Jimmell, is back in the building. Jimmell, what up?
Hi, everybody. Hi, listeners. Hi, Kyle. Thank you for having me back.
What's good?
Nothing much.
Yeah, glad to have you back. I mean, I'm glad that you were able to clear out some space on your very busy calendar. I got pushed off for games. I got pushed off for events. I got pushed off for speaking engagements. So, I'm glad you're in the building.
Well, thank you. It's my pleasure to be here.
So there's a lot of different places we can go. I mean, obviously you being, and folks, I'm not joking. She is the number, she's ranked in the top 3 as far as pediatricians in the world. She doesn't think so, but I saw the stats, right?
He's making that up.
But there's, all jokes aside, there's a lot of stuff that has happened since the last time that we had you on. And that was a little more than a year ago. So there's a lot of different ways we can go. I think probably where I want to start is, I guess we could start with you. What major changes have you seen in your profession or personal that's happened over the last year that has been like, okay, like a wow thing or just a new normal for you in the medical field?
Okay. Well, I think last time we were talking about my obesity practice. And so, but really, what has happened since a year ago is that we are seeing just lots and lots of misinformation, disinformation, distrust in science and medicine, just the disregard for experts and research and decades of research in science.
Right.
And so we're pretty much opinion or just something you just don't like. And so it's been very sad for public health, the dismantling of a lot of institutions and science and research entities. And so it's been really disheartening for the public health space, for the pediatric space. And it's frankly pretty alarming at this point where we are right now.
Right. It really has been. And I think, this has really been a whirlwind of change, if you will, for a lot of different industries, but it's really affected the medical profession adversely, particularly as we've definitely within the last year, because we've changed administrations and people that are in charge. And while this isn't a political podcast, we can definitely, I don't know how you can have the conversation without going into some of the discussions and quite frankly, some of the rhetoric that we've heard. Speaking of politically, the top chief over the Health and Human Services, HHS, Kennedy, I think that's his name. He's come out a lot and spoken a lot of things, some of which have sounded like just outright crazy. But like here recently, one of the things that I think it looks like the federal government is looking to do is to push immunization and vaccines off to the states. I did see the other day that, they're really, really pushing towards making it mandated for the states to decide whether or not they're going to immunize children as they enter the school age. Like I said, top 3 pediatrician. What do you think about the immunization and the pushback that maybe not you per se, but your field has gotten over the last 6 to 12 months about what's been going on?
Well, just let me clarify. I'm not practicing. I stopped practicing pediatrics.
We know that.
In 2023.
But you're still top 3.
And so I just have to say that. But since then, I do still have colleagues. I still am a vaccine advocate. So, so this is highly disturbing for people who've dedicated their lives to being vaccine advocates, which pediatricians are. And so, to say the least, that we are interfering with people's personal choice, interfering with people's decisions that are supposed to be private between them and their physicians. And to say that we should eliminate vaccine mandates, i.e., the state of Florida suggesting that, because I just don't even know why we're where we are. I mean, I guess I know why we are where we are,
Right.
but I wish we weren't. And I think it's a very alarming and dangerous time. So I think there is an agenda. There was an agenda, and it's being laid out. And I think that children will become sicker and children may die. And because vaccines work. You know, for 90 years, the American Academy of Pediatrics has been in existence, and we have been vaccine proponents and advocates because they work and they save millions of lives. We eradicated measles. Essentially, nobody, it was essentially eradicated in the United States. And now in 2025, we've had 1,454 confirmed measles cases in this year. Up until this point,
Wow.
as of 9/9/25, 1,454 cases. And last year we had a total of 285.
Wow. Those are some big numbers. That's a big jump.
Yeah. And so I don't know, I don't have to break down from states, but for South Carolina, we had our third confirmed case of measles last week. And then
Wow.
this morning, as it would have it, as I was getting ready for this podcast, my hospital system issued an alert to the medical staff saying that there has been a case of Mpox, formerly known as monkeypox, in the 7 county service areas that we serve. So people should be on
Wow.
for Mpox, which is no longer called monkeypox, but that's what people will know about it. Yeah, so we've had a case
Okay.
in one of the 7 counties that we serve. So that's, it's real. There are going to be a lot more vaccine outbreaks. There are going to be a lot of people getting diseases that we normally wouldn't get because we would be vaccinated. The general population's, which is herd immunity, is going to decrease. And so we'll see a lot more people getting these diseases, which are vaccine preventable. And for pediatricians, that's sad that we are going to see increase in vaccine preventable disease.
Now that's interesting, and I want to go back to something you said as far as like measles, like because until you read that, I had no idea that we were still making measles, right? I didn't know because it was measles was something that was talked about. I know at least when we were kids, right? And I don't. You may know somebody, but I never knew anybody that had measles, and so to hear it coming back from, like you said, 285 cases last year to where we are now, that's like mind-boggling. Are we seeing the influx of it because of the lack of knowledge, or is it because we've walked away from those vaccines altogether, or both?
Yeah, I think it's all of the rhetoric, the misinformation, the disinformation, the question of science and research, that people are skittish and skeptical. Also, sometimes people think, pediatricians make a whole lot of money off of vaccines and we should be against big pharma.
You don't?
Well, I mean, pediatricians and I'll just say all primary care specialties, internists, family practitioners, somebody might start playing a little violin for me, but the primary care physicians make the least amount of money out of all of the specialties in medicine. And so if we really were in it to do, make money, we'd be a surgeon or, some of these other high paying specialties. So people that are in primary care are trying to, help families, help patients. Not that surgeons are, and I'm not saying that. That's not what I'm saying. but we're certainly not making
Right.
money or a lot of money off of vaccines. We get $12 for administration fee. That's it. So,
Yeah, that's not a lot of money.
and that was when I was in practice 2 years ago. So I don't know what it is now. So we're not making money off of vaccines. We want people to have healthy babies, so they'll grow up to be healthy school-age children, healthy teenagers, and then healthy young adults. And we want to see, that's a lot of the reasons why a lot of us choose pediatrics, because kids are relatively healthy. Yes, we
Right.
have some illnesses that, kids can get, like childhood cancers and other things, but for the most part, kids are happy, they're jolly, they're healthy, happy for the most part. So for us to go to, swing the pendulum to where we may see a lot of unnecessary illness in children because we're not doing, we're not getting the vaccines anymore. That's sad for us. We don't want to see the children sick. We don't want to,
Oh, no.
One of the, side effects of measles is like, oh, what's the big deal? It's a rash. There's something, they can get encephalitis, which is a brain inflammation. And there are cases of kids that die from measles, which some of the kids that had it did unfortunately pass away. So it's not without risk. Everything we do has pros and cons. So for the most part, vaccines work and they save lives.
I was reading earlier that the AAP released its schedule ahead of the respiratory virus season so that parents can make informed decisions as far as how they want to treat their children. Do you find, at least maybe not you because you're not practicing, but do you find that what the AAP has done is going to be helpful, or do you think people are just making the decision to follow some of these people like Kennedy and just do their own damn thing?
I think it'll be a mix. But I think people trust their pediatricians. At least we hope that we have instilled trust. It's difficult, I think, for the first time if you've come to a pediatrician. So like, people who've been rocking with us for 3 and 4 years, that's their second child, their third child, probably has established some trust. But if you've come to us, this is your first baby, you hear all the things that the news and the TikTok is telling you, and then you come in and meet us, and we're seeming to be pushing vaccines, and that's what the media would have you believe, that we're in here pushing it. And it's an informed consent. We're trying to give you something called informed consent, which every physician is charged with doing. You wouldn't go get your appendix out without somebody telling you all the things that could potentially happen. It's called informed consent. So we talk to you about the vaccines. We tell you how safe they are. We tell you that, I would say I vaccinated my children. I'm vaccinated, taking care of lots and thousands of children that have gotten vaccines. And, yes, there are some cases of vaccine side effects, but for the most part, those kids do fine. They grow up to be healthy and happy and not have a disease that could be prevented by vaccines. So, so I think it's a trust factor. I think if you're already established with a pediatrician, it's easier. I think if it's a new parent coming in and you want to weigh, risk versus benefits and weigh in all the things that's coming at you at such a fast pace, and you're looking at this baby and you're like, this can't be right to give this baby, 4 shots at 2 months old. But when you think back to when you were that age and you got it and you grew up to be just fine and you didn't get polio and you didn't get diphtheria and you didn't get, hepatitis and Hemophilus and then on these other things that you can get, that is why we vaccinate. Then I would love for people to reflect back on their own experience if they were vaccinated. Sometimes we make decisions about circumcisions too. And some people have their own, thoughts about that. But a lot of people are circumcised and it was done as a baby, right? And so everybody has to make, for their own child. And we respect that. But a lot of things, And that's an elective procedure. So that's not, this is the same thing. That's why I said.
Were you on board with that as a mother?
Yeah. What you mean?
Because you have 2 sons.
Yeah.
I said, were you on board with that as a mother?
Yeah. But that's the analogy I'm talking about informed consent, because circumcisions are an elective procedure. There are less incidents of urinary tract infections in boys that are circumcised that are compared to uncircumcised boys. But for the most part, it's an elective procedure that is a parent's choice. Nobody's forcing you to get your child circumcised. It's your choice. It's the same thing with vaccines. But we do feel like we have a duty as pediatricians to inform you about the safety and then also the consequences of not getting vaccines. For instance, so if you don't decide not to get vaccines for your children and your child gets a fever, then you know that this is an unimmunized person, child, infant, and so they have to get a workup that some children might not get because they have their vaccines. And so sometimes that would be getting a lumbar puncture. Sometimes that would be getting blood work drawn to see where the infection is coming from. So everything has its pros and cons. Every action has, consequences that come with that. So we just try to lay it all out there so you can make an informed decision. And so, long story, answer to your question. Did I feel that it was necessary for the AAP to put out their own immunization schedule? Well, they do that every year. Mm-hmm. And so they put it out in response to some of the advice that was given out by HHS. And so they let's
I like that answer.
Go ahead and put out the vaccine schedule that we're going to stand by, because as an academy, we stand by vaccines. And so it was very important for them to put out. I was very proud of my academy for doing that. Last week, ACOG, American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists, so OBGYNs, they put out a statement contrary to what advice was given out by HHS that Tylenol is not safe in pregnancy. They put out a statement to say we stand by Tylenol and it is safe, from the American College of Obstetricians, Obstetrologists, that we still stand by Tylenol to be used in pregnancy, and it is not a cause of autism in children.
Right.
So this is dangerous stuff, right? So you link, taking Tylenol while you're pregnant to autism is ridiculous. I mean, so many women have taken Tylenol. Yes, is the cases of autism going up? Yes, but the criteria have changed. I think autism is a multifactorial causes of why we have autism. And so to blame it on Tylenol in pregnancy is upsetting to OBGYNs and pediatricians and to any doctor that, is worth their salt and really stands up behind science and medicine. And years of research.
Yeah, I can see why you would say that, because like you said, it's just weird to me that you have, associations like the AAP, which is the American Academy of Pediatricians, if I didn't say that earlier. You have that, and you have that body who's been around this long that will tell you, hey, this is what works, this is what doesn't work, this is what we've done. And then all of a sudden you get one person at the head of the HHS. And I like the term that you use, that is giving advice, because a lot of times if you listen to some of the people, particularly at the head of the HHS, it sounds like he's, maybe he may have had a cocktail or two and he's sitting in front of a microphone and now he's giving advice to the American public. But it's just weird to hear those type of things, particularly when it's not coming from the medical field. I don't know necessarily if we are getting the right information that we need. And that's one of the things that you and I always talk about. And the thing that I try to preach to my friends and family is do your own research. You have gotten on me for going to WebMD for my diagnosis. Listen, y'all, I called her one day and I was like, I said, man, I got this thing going on my sinuses. I checked with WebMD. She was like, you don't need to be checking the WebMD. Go to the doctor. She's like, go to the ENT. So I went to the ENT, found out I had like 1,000 allergies or whatever the case may be. But WebMD was pretty good. But that's beside the point. So my next question is
WebMD is good as far as medical knowledge. It's more of a reputable site than TikTok. So if you have to go someplace, WebMD is fine, but it's not in lieu of going to the doctor. So that was the only point that I was saying. So let's just clarify. WebMD is a very reputable source to get medical information from. And TikTok, let me stop hating on TikTok. I'm not a TikTok person, so that's the reason why I keep hating on it. Like,
I'm on TikTok.
I'm not on TikTok.
I mean, I don't get my medical information from TikTok. I could tell you that right now.
There's certain doctors that are on TikTok and making really good information out there. So maybe I'll start doing some TikTok, but probably not.
There you go.
But I'm just saying, let me stop hating on it because I don't use it. But there's some people on there that's really giving out good medical sound advice. So just do your research. And make sure it's sound advice, but you also ultimately get to make your own decisions. But what I don't like is that in the response of trying to protect and, give people choice, my choices have been limited. So I'll give you the example about the COVID vaccine.
Okay.
That I want to get. I'm 51. Right now, the recommendation was put out that you can only get it if you're 65 and above. Well, I'm a long way from that, but I have never had COVID. So I am going on a trip to go to the AAP conference with all my fellow pediatricians out in Denver in a couple weeks. And I'm going to be on a plane. And I wanted to get myself vaccinated. It usually takes about 2 weeks for your immunity to build up. And so I wanted to go ahead and get the COVID vaccine before I got on the plane. And it was such an ordeal. For the first time, I felt like it was a barrier for me to get a vaccine. I had to, first I had to call and see if it was in town. So I called my local Publix. Of course it was in. And so they told me, but you need a prescription this year. I was like, why do you need a prescription?
Wow.
I never need a prescription to get the COVID vaccine before, but I don't care, whatever. So I called my doctor. I need a prescription for the COVID vaccine. Ma'am, you don't need a prescription for the COVID vaccine. You just go to the pharmacy and you get it. Ma'am, I'm telling you, they told me that this year you need a prescription to get the vaccine. And it specifically has to say COVID vaccine 2025-26. So
wow.
I was like, okay, so once we went through that back and forth, I got my prescription. Now, this is a 2-day thing because I started on Thursday. So, so when I get to the pharmacy on Friday, I show up with my prescription. So I'm ready. I already called ahead of time. I'm filling up the form. I got my prescription. So I drop it off. And I got new insurance this year. So I don't know if this is my insurance or the all of the rhetoric that's going on. So there was this hullabaloo. They didn't, they couldn't find the code for 25, 26. It was just a whole thing. So I was like, okay, am I going to be able to get this shot today? Yes, it's 100, 0, 0. COVID vaccines have been free.
For a COVID?
Yes, I have never paid $100 for any vaccine.
Wow.
But I was charged $100 for the COVID vaccine. And I don't know if it's, like I said, I don't know if it's my insurance. I don't know what it was. But I still got my COVID vaccine because I'm still getting on that plane in a couple weeks. I'm not trying to come back from Denver with COVID. So I paid my $100 and then I went on my merry way. But I used to get my COVID and flu together, which you can do. You can get those vaccines on the same day. But they said that my insurance would only pay for the flu vaccine if I got it in my doctor's office. So then I had to trek all the way from Publix. Now I'm at the pharmacy now. I had to trek all the way back to my doctor's office, which I had already been there to pick the prescription up that morning, get my flu vaccine. And I was like, this is insane. Like, can you imagine people having to go through this? So I had a friend, his father is in Georgia. I'm in South Carolina, by the way. So his father's in Georgia. That's your home state. He's
It
on
is.
he's on Medicare, and he was calling around because Medicare, and he's elderly. He's greater than 65. Those are the people who's supposed to be able to get it, right? So he was calling his local pharmacies. Nobody would give it to him. They said they wouldn't give it to him. And so he finally found a Minute Clinic that would give it to him. And it's just insane. And this is happening more and more, that people are having barriers to getting the COVID vaccine. They're either having to, they're being denied, saying they can't get it, or it's costing more money than it has ever cost before. So it's just sad. We shouldn't have to put up barriers if we're trying to, make America healthy again. Shouldn't be putting up barriers. And you should not be able to take away my choice for something that I would like to do. No, I'm not 65, but I've never had COVID and I don't want to get it now. And so you shouldn't interfere with my choice to make for me as an informed person who would like to still get the COVID vaccine. I shouldn't have that many barriers thrown up against me from getting it. So that's the problem I really have.
Yeah, that is crazy. And as I'm listening to you tell this story, it's wild because there was a time, and it doesn't feel like it was that long ago, where you literally could drive your car up to a place and you'd have to wait in line for hours to get a COVID shot. I know this because I did it several times myself. And the vaccine was like, it was almost like crack. In the 80s, somebody was on the corner just handing it out. And same with the COVID test. Like, I was in CVS the other day. CVS is a local pharmacy. I don't know if they have them outside of Georgia, but CVS is. So I'm in my local CVS, and I just happened to look, and I saw one COVID test in this basket, and there were no more COVID tests. And I was like, and I something just made me ask, and the lady was like, she said, well, no, we don't have any more. She was like, we have to order some. And I was like, okay. But I remember when the government sent us COVID tests, and
in the mail.
Now it's just like, in the mail. I mean, like, so even if I wanted to get a COVID test tomorrow, like, I don't even know if I could go to CVS and find one. But that's just weird to me, that you would have to go through all of that for someone who wants the vaccine, not somebody who's avoiding or saying, hey, you know what, I'm good. I ain't messing with it. I took the shot 2 years ago. I didn't have a frog growing out my forehead, so I'm gonna leave it alone. But even, and here's the part that I don't want people to miss. At least you had the $100 to pay for it.
No, that's the thing.
Because
that's
what if
I'm
you
talking
didn't?
about. So I had to have a car. I had to go, tell my doctor's office. They didn't believe me. So then I had to tell them again, I've already called Publix. It's like, yes, I know 2 weeks ago you didn't need a prescription to get the COVID vaccine, but now you do. So then you have to wait on your doctor's office. And that's a burden on the doctors to write a prescription for everybody who wants the COVID vaccine that's not over 65. And apparently in some places, if you're over 65, you still need a prescription. So now they got to write a prescription for everybody who wants a COVID vaccine. Okay, so that's more work and administrative work for them in their front office. Then I have to wait. Now, I'm the patient, so we normally wait right at doctor's offices. I'll say that. So I had to wait for it. Then I had to drive. What if I didn't have the transportation to drive to Publix to go get it? And then I have insurance, but they still charged me $100. She said it was $200 and something. So that is the rebate after your insurance paid what they was going to pay. I was like, say what? I was like, this is crazy. Like, nobody's paying $100 for a COVID shot. Nobody.
No.
I'm just.
No. I mean,
I'm paying.
It comes down to
it. Like, I've never had it. So I'm thinking I've never had chickenpox either. So I'm thinking, like, if this 51-year-old body gets COVID or chickenpox or measles, because I'm going out here, I don't know what these people going to have. I need to be protected.
Okay, wait a minute. Time out. Like, okay, so we're gonna pause this conversation for a second. How did you not get chickenpox when we were in middle school?
I never had chickenpox. So me and my siblings.
Everybody had chickenpox when we were at Williams.
Never had it. Never had chickenpox. And so I'll tell you about my chickenpox saga. So me and my
Okay.
siblings, we've never had chickenpox. And so when I went to medical school, I had to get the chickenpox vaccine because they check your titers. And of course, I didn't have
Okay.
titers because I've never had chickenpox. And so I had to get shots. So I got my first round of chickenpox shots, I believe, was, I think it was for med school. But I mean,
Okay.
I might have a senior memory lapse, but I think it was for med school. And so I got my, round of vaccines for that. And then some other time, I think for residency, they check your titers again. So that was when I was going to do pediatric residency. And I didn't have titers, even though I had done the shot. And so I had to take it again. Or maybe this is kind of a convoluted story. The short of it is I had 2 rounds of varicella vaccine, which is Varivax. I had 2 rounds of
Wow.
2 shots. So when you get the
Okay.
chickenpox vaccine, you get 2 shots, sometime apart. And so as an adult, so I got that twice. And then I'm going someplace for another job or whatever, and they still do the titers because they do this quite often in medicine. And I still didn't have chickenpox titers. And I was like, you are not giving me another round of vaccines. Like something's going on. My body doesn't want it. So I do not have immunity for chickenpox. And so as a pediatrician, that's crazy, right? So you see all kind of rashes and you see all kind of things that you have to diagnose. And of course, I've seen chickenpox in my career. But for me, I'm what's called a vaccine non-responder. So if you've taken shots and then you still don't have titers, that means your body didn't respond to that vaccine for whatever reason. And I'm also for hepatitis B. And so again, had to go through the whole thing with the hepatitis B rounds of shots. And so I have to sign paperwork that say that I knowingly refuse to get another vaccine. So yes, I'm a vaccine advocate, but for me personally, the reason why it matters so much to me is I don't have immunity for chickenpox. I don't have native immunity, meaning I never had it. And so I can't for some reason, can't get passive immunity through a vaccine either. So I don't want someone to be able to walk into my office and expose me because I'm older. I don't want to get chickenpox at 51. I don't want to get COVID. I've seen what it's done to people. I see what it did to my brother. We share the same genes. Like, he didn't do so good with it. Doing it. So for me to be able to protect myself is very important to me that I do what I can to stay healthy. And so, I never got chickenpox and I still don't have titers for chickenpox. So that means if somebody comes around me with chickenpox and I'm not protected, I can get it. And so basically while I was practicing as a pediatrician, they would have to know, and a lot of people have never seen chickenpox. So they would have to pre-screen rashes for me to make sure that they didn't think it was chickenpox. But if they were questioning and they thought it was chickenpox, then I had to get on the full garb. And I was doing that before COVID, okay? Because this is titers for varicella. So I put on my PPE. I've been wearing N95s for a very long time because that's what you do for varicella. So for chickenpox, so I'd have to wear my N95. I'd put on my whole gown and gloves, and I'd go see the patient. But if, one of my partners was there was no reason for me to be exposed. So if they thought it was really chickenpox, a lot of times one of my partners would just see it.
Well, here's my take, and there's a reason why I asked you this question, because as many of you know, maybe you don't know, Jimmell and I grew up together. We went to middle school, high school together, and I was in the 8th grade and she was in the 7th grade. And when I was in 8th grade, I am convinced that not only did I have chickenpox, but I gave it to the entire 8th grade. And when I tell you that,
thank goodness I was in 7th grade.
8th grade class, I don't know how it didn't reach you, because everybody at Williams Middle School got sick. And I remember it to the day because it was like it was like a Thursday or Friday, and it was like 75 degrees. We were outside playing, and I was cold. It was 75 degrees, so it was warm in South Carolina, in Florence, where we grew up, and I'm freezing. And I just remember sitting down on the ground, and I was trying to get more sunlight because I had on a t-shirt, and if I had some shorts, I would have taken my jeans off and put some shorts on. I was freezing. And so like I couldn't get, and then like later that night, I remember coming home and there was this one big bump that grew on my forearm. And when my mom saw it, she said, "Boy, that's chickenpox." I was like, "What do you mean?" And like 2 hours later, my arms filled up. Like it was just like coming out of nowhere. And subsequently, everybody in my class, and when I say the entire 8th grade got sick. So I'm surprised that you didn't get sick. So if you didn't get sick in the 7th grade with chickenpox, that probably means that you're never going to get it. And you were exposed to it. I don't know how, the way our middle school is set up, I don't know, you were definitely exposed to it. There's no doubt in my mind, because I remember there were teachers that got it. I mean, like we was passing out chickenpox like it was money.
Yeah.
Everybody got sick. So long story short, I think you're fine. I don't think you don't have to ever worry about chickenpox. Now you can worry about COVID, you can worry about other things, but chickenpox, you good. You ain't never going, because if you didn't get it at Williams, you wasn't going to ever get it. So, but I'm convinced that I got it, and me and my boy Donnie, and Donnie gave it to me, and we gave it to the entire 8th grade, because like our whole math class got it. But I want to go back to something you said as far as like COVID. We talked on the last, maybe not the last episode, but when you came on before, about COVID. And, you know, it's still mind boggling to me that you would have to go through so much to get a COVID shot. When you came on before, I think it might've been your first time on the podcast, we spoke about herd immunity. I'm assuming that we as a country, or maybe the world, have reached herd immunity, because you don't hear about people. We hear that the COVID numbers are up, but we don't ever hear about people obviously transitioning and getting sick.
No,
Where
people
are
do get
we
sick.
on?
People do.
Okay.
Yeah, people do still get sick.
But we don't hear about it anymore. And why is that?
Now you're asking philosophical
Is that political
questions.
or is that just, huh?
I would say 100% is political. So
Okay.
like the numbers are going up. Like in our communities, even though I'm not practicing, you know, I'm still in touch with the medical community here. I live in a small rural town. So yes, COVID is up. The numbers are going up. But, you know, I think I'll say people maybe got COVID fatigue. Like it was so much COVID talk way back when that people just don't want to hear about it anymore. Like the illness is creeping up. And also because we're in, I don't know how many iterations we are now in the vaccine. I mean, in the COVID variant.
This is true.
Right. So we know that as that viruses mutate, you know, they have different symptoms now. So apparently the variation that's out now, you get your throat is very sore and it feels like razor blades. So that's kind of the iteration now. Look, your girl don't want that, because I'm telling you, I don't do good with like sore throat. You know, give me a cold or a cough, but a razor blade in the back of my throat, no, I don't want that. But anyway, but it's not as virulent. I mean, it spreads still pretty easily. Mm-hmm. But the fact that we have vaccines and a lot of people have had it or have had a vaccine, you have some kind of immunity, some kind of built-in immunity. So now it's more like the flu, right? So sometimes we have bad flu seasons. Sometimes we have, you know, not as bad flu seasons. And sometimes it's just a regular cold and you get over in a couple days. And a lot of times that's what's happening now with COVID. You know, you have that sore throat, that crazy sore throat, and then you have a little congestion, and then you go get over it in a couple of days. So it's not as dire as it was when I first came on the podcast, because we were in the throes of it. We didn't know a lot about it, and millions and millions of people were dying from it. So from that aspect, no, we're not dying by the millions. But people still get sick, and there's still some long recovery that some people have, and there's still some long COVID that people can get from it. So again, I want to keep my 51-year-old self healthy and not get anything.
So tell me something, and I actually, I think, we talked about this because I told you this was in a discussion group that I was in, unfortunately. When people say, well, the doctors want to keep you on medicine, they want to have you taking these vaccines so they can get paid, where does that come from? Where does that thought process come from? Because unbeknownst to me, there are a lot of people that feel like the people in the medical profession are financially profiting off every time they prescribe for you to go get this vaccine or go get that vaccine. And that's not the case.
Oh, that's a very complicated question. But what I will
Okay.
do is say that there is a lot of pushback and there's a lot of rhetoric around the validity of science, right? So we have people out there that are questioning science, questioning research, and it's fine to question, but people have dedicated their careers and lives to helping get technologies, vaccines, and they're not doing that. They may make money off of it. Let's just put that out there.
It's the profession.
They're not doing it for that. If somebody comes up
Right.
with a cure for cancer, they want to cure cancer. Now, money may come with that, but I don't think that's the motivation for most physicians that go into medicine. The main reason people say they go into medicine is to help people. And with every career, profession, there may be some bad actors out there that aren't in it for the right reason or in it solely to make money. But for the most part, we want people to be healthy. Now, on the other end of that coin, because I'm also board certified in obesity medicine, right? So
Right.
I also feel like the American healthcare system is less towards prevention and more towards keeping people on medicines and those kind of things. So there is some truth to that. So on my other hat that I wear with obesity medicine, if we stop treating and come back every 3 months for us to check your high blood pressure and your diabetes and take this insulin and take this metformin and take this lisinopril and take this, hydrochlorothiazide for blood pressure and diabetes. But we don't address the root cause of obesity, then yes, there is some truth to what people feel about that. But now you can treat, and there's some feelings about this too. But if you lose weight, some people get off their high blood pressure medicine. Some people get off
This is true.
diabetes medicine. So, there should be a shift on trying to help people become healthier and live a healthier life without so much, reliance on medicine. But that takes a mind shift a lot of the times.
This is true.
And hard work, commitment, and dedication. I mean, we talked about this. I think we touched on this a little bit last time. When we get up a certain age,
we did.
It's a little tough. So, I respect, and I will say that the culture in medicine should be moving more towards prevention of chronic diseases, because that is a problem. It really is. And we have so many, especially in the South, we have so much diabetes, so much hypertension, so much obesity, that if we could get a handle on that and help people and give people the tools, that maybe we wouldn't be so reliant on medicines. Maybe we would be healthier. But I'm telling you, who wants to eat the Mediterranean diet, which is what people that live in the blue zones eat? And blue zones are people that have a lot of people that live over 100 years old. And they're not like in wheelchairs and on oxygen. They're actually living. They're actually healthy and living long, active lives in communities. And there are several blue zones across the world. And they mostly eat that Mediterranean diet. And I mean, and
they don't eat no hamburgers.
I think occasionally, probably, but you're not
going to say, I need a burger every now and then now. Can't just eat salad every day.
Yeah, so,
come on now. I need some chicken.
So I think there's some truth to that. I mean, the way the American healthcare system is set up, we don't focus as much on prevention as we need to. And that is an issue. But once you do get diabetes, high blood pressure, and the like, I mean, some of that stuff has to be controlled by medicines, because you can't walk around here with blood pressures of 200 over 100 and think you're going to live a long life or life that's even one without morbidities, meaning you're not going to have some suffering from it. like
Right.
having a stroke or heart attack, or for diabetes, losing a limb. So, I mean, you don't have to take the medicines, but if you got a hemoglobin A1C of 15, which is the number that they check to see about your diabetes, or your sugar, as some of the black folks call it. And I'm not making fun of us because, that's what we do. We call it
I know
sugar.
what you meant. I know what you meant.
Yeah. So,
That was funny.
if it's 15, then you can walk around and not take any medicines if you want, but you may lose your foot. I mean, it just is what it is. But again, for pediatricians, we're not making the money off no vaccines. I'm gonna just say that one more time.
Okay. Duly noted. When you were on before, we talked almost specifically about weight management, so I want to touch on that as well. Since it seems like since the last time we spoke on the podcast, one of the big things has been some of these drugs, and I can't call it drugs because I really don't know what it is.
GLP-1.
There you go. What is, so do those things work, and what is your take on the long-term success of those things? Because we've seen people drop some pounds now without having to go to the gym or hit the walking track.
Oh my gosh, please. Okay. Let me dispel one myth. You can get on a GLP-1 and still not lose weight, because you still have to do the fundamental foundation of weight management or weight loss, and that is nutrition and activity. You still have to do those things.
Facts.
So, I mean, I'm a proponent of having a holistic look at what you're doing as far as managing your weight. And we can talk about stress. We can talk about hormones, especially, menopause in women. We talked about that a little bit last time.
We did.
It's a devil, I'm telling you. But anyway, but you also have to, you can't eat as many burgers when you are our age, because it just, and not, exercise, because it's just going to stick with you a little bit more than it did when we used to eat full pizzas when we were in college. So
the good old days. As
the medicines, like I said, I am board certified in obesity medicine, so I'm an advocate for the medicines too. I have a sweet spot for children because I'm a pediatrician. I was a pediatrician first. So in my practice, I love to help my kiddos lose weight. My patient 0 that I started out with children, she's lost about 50 pounds. And my patient 0 is an adult, lost 80. So the medicines work. So really, honestly, I usually tell people for about a year, you should try to stay on the medicine. As you work towards mind shift and habit changing habits take a long time. And so that's why I say it should be a holistic, interdisciplinary work that you do, because a lot of it is shifting your mind and around food. And what the medicine does for a lot of people is get rid of the food noise. So if you've never had food noise, you don't know what that is. But that's when you constantly think about food. That's why it's called food noise. And so the medicine,
I've never heard that term before, but it makes sense.
Yeah. So if you're somebody who constantly thinks about food, what you're going to eat the next time you eat, or you getting up from the table from breakfast and you're planning what you're going to eat for lunch, or the snack in between breakfast and lunch, the medicine helps people a lot of times with that. It shuts off that food noise. And so they're not constantly thinking about food. And so they can make some gains. They can have some success because their brain is not obsessed with food. And I think that's one of the things that people don't understand. Obesity is very faceted chronic disease. And, once you have it, you're going to stick with it. It might stick with you for the rest of your life. But it's been shown if you help children that to lose the weight as teenagers, then they go on to be usually healthy adults. And they usually have more success rate of keeping the weight off. Now, when we get of a certain age, sometimes we just it's difficult to make those habits and change those habits because they've been set up over the course of decades. And so that's why I tell people weight management is a journey. You're going to have ebbs and flows with everything. And so to answer your question, I always have these long-winded, but I get back to it.
No, it's a great. You're doing fine. I
Yeah.
love the answer.
So I do really think these are good medicines. The field of obesity medicine is a baby field compared to a lot of the fields out there, but it's taken some of the science and knowledge to help people change their lives. So for people to be able to be more active, to be more, feel more comfortable in their own skin, you know, they look in the mirror and they like what they see now.
Right.
That's so helpful and so much more of a motivator. And it rivals some bariatric weight loss, surgery weight loss. So yes, everybody seems to be on the Ozempic, Wegovy, Mounjaro, Zepbound, and I think it's a good thing for the most part because it helps people with their other chronic morbidities. So a lot of people can get off their diabetes medicine. Some people can get off their hypertension medicine. You're swapping it out for another medicine, right? And so people say, "Why get off the medicine?" Well, for the most part, a lot of people gain the weight back if they haven't done the work. So if you
Right.
haven't decided that you were going to start exercising or changing your diet and you just took the medicine, lost the weight you wanted to lose, but you didn't change your mind, when the food noise comes back, you're going to listen to it.
Right. I mean, but it's about getting fly for the summer, right?
But if you get yourself some tools of how you can deal with your triggers of stress, emotional eating, night eating, you know, then that's how you can make that lifestyle change. So the basis of weight management is medicine plus lifestyle change. So we use all the tools, but really to make that long lasting change, you have to change the habits.
Okay. All right. Well, I got one more question before we get out of here. And this is not related to anything that we've talked about. It's not related to any health or anything like that. The question I want to know is, what is your alma mater going to do in basketball this year?
Say that again.
What is your alma mater going to do in basketball? I think you heard me the first time, because you know they're not going to be with, because you know last year y'all came out, oh, we got Cooper Flag, we're doing this, we're doing that, and you know, I mean, it started out good, and then you know, it
I
just
don't
went
know what we're
downhill.
going to do. We're trying to get through football season right now.
For those of you who don't know, Jimmell is a Duke alum, and so I always find it interesting. Like our conversations about basketball are always funny, but like you're a big Duke football fan, which is crazy to me. I mean, I remember you told me like one year about how people go to football games. I'm like, people actually watch football at Duke, like.
Yeah,
you hear about the Cameron crazies, but nobody talks about the football team.
No, but I was friends with a lot of the football players at Duke, and we did
Okay.
have some success, you know,
That was
sometimes,
30 years ago, Jimmell.
but it hadn't been, you know, we're not known for football. And so, you know,
Of course.
last year we had a pretty good season, and we lost our coach, and then we got Manny Diaz. And so I think he's just trying to get the boys right. I'm hoping that we can have a couple wins. Now, it wasn't looking too tough right there at the beginning here, but you know, it's just the beginning. So we just gonna have to see what we do. As far as basketball goes,
I love your optimism.
You gotta have optimism, man. You know, it's like it's gonna be our year, like, you know, for football. Basketball, I don't know. I mean, I really don't know.
Okay.
I don't know anything about the recruits. I mean, I'm trying to get through football season. So really, honestly, I do focus in on football. I do watch the game.
Okay.
And then I get the basketball when it's time to get the basketball.
Okay.
How your alma mater gonna do?
How is my alma mater gonna do?
Yeah, with football.
Oh, mine is gonna be fine. I mean, we won the MEAC last year. We were back in the Celebration Bowl. We didn't win, but we played South Carolina this past weekend, and we held tough against them. So we'll see.
Tough.
I mean, listen. The most important thing was that there was a $500,000 check that was coming. We need to get that check and get back on I-26 and go back to Orangeburg. That's all. And
you need that
to be
check.
healthy.
I get it. I understand.
We got the check, and from what I understand, the check cleared.
Yeah.
Thank you, South Carolina.
Yeah.
So that's important because we need that money.
Yeah.
But I think we're going to have a pretty good season. We'll see. I never try to brag about it, but even watching the games, and this is how you know you're getting old, because like I get frustrated. I like the other day I was wanting to like throw stuff at the TV, and I'm like, okay, like I'm getting a little out of control. I don't get like that about pro football, but college, you know, especially when you went to school, you know, it's personal. You know, we just feel it a little bit more than,
Yeah,
you know, that's, I always say Saturdays are better than Sundays, but
yeah, yeah. I agree
so
with that.
we
And then until basketball
so
season comes in, and that's on Sunday too. But
and we were both in the same fantasy football league, and
yes.
for some reason,
No, don't
for some
say
reason
it.
I had the last pick. I had the last pick in the draft. I don't know how I got the last pick in the draft, but you know, for the second year in a row, I got the last pick in the draft.
No, it was
But I'm
not
not
2
going to
years in a
complain
row.
on the
Stop
podcast.
it. Stop. He's not telling.
I'm not.
He's giving you misinformation. It's not 2 years in a row that he was the last pick. But you know,
Well, next to the last, I was close to last.
well,
So
I was next to the
I
last
have to
this year.
make do with what I have.
Yeah, so I mean, I got blown out by your son. So I was, you know, it was just terrible. I was holding on until that, you know, Zay Flowers came through, and then it was over. So
Oh my God.
yeah, he got Zay,
And
and
listen,
I died after that.
I had no idea. As long as I think I told you this, as long as I've known you, I had no idea you were this competitive about sports. Like, I literally remember last year getting a text at like 11:45, and you were like, "Oh man, I need such and such to get this many points." I'm like, "What are you still doing up? Like, you go to bed at like
I go
9
to bed
o'clock."
in the 10 o'clock hour, yeah. So this getting
And you was up
I
watching
told
Monday
him
Night Football just to
this
see.
was gonna be stretching it because I'll be grinding down to go to sleep. But before we go, and I know you said this, and we always talk about an hour.
Go ahead. You got some information?
I want to ask you a question.
Okay.
And I know I'm not the host, and I'm not taking over your podcast, but I think this is
Oh no, I love to be asked questions.
I think this is important because we're talking about our alma maters and what happened with your
Mhm.
alma mater. And I'm not real clear on it, but so I want you to go into what the person said about South Carolina State at a game.
Okay, so at the time of this recording, this past weekend, we just played the University of South Carolina. And apparently there's a high school somewhere in South Carolina. I never heard of it. I don't live in South Carolina, so there's a gazillion schools that I've never heard of. But anyway, there was this announcer that, from what I could gather, he made a comment on his Facebook page about the upcoming game between South Carolina State and University of South Carolina. Now, keep in mind, South Carolina State and the University of South Carolina, while they're separated about 35 miles, this past weekend when we played was only the fourth time that we played them in our history of our school, and we've been around since 1896. And so he made a comment, I guess, on his personal Facebook page that referenced something about University of South Carolina was going to be playing against the criminals from South Carolina State. And he used the word criminals. And, you know, when you associate criminals and black people, and this guy was an announcer for a high school. The high school had him, while he wasn't an employee of the high school, he was someone that contracted. They made him issue an apology, which he did. But you know us as far as black folk. When we want you out of there, you out of there. So a couple phone calls got made. This wasn't something that was going to get swept under the rug. There was already screenshots. There was already comments on his page. There were people that were friends with him that was turning the information over, and his responses in the comment section, I guess, about it, where he kind of, I guess, doubled down on it. So suffice to say, he lost that particular job. I don't know where he works for a living or whatever. He, like I said, he wasn't an employee of the school. I didn't see the comments. I just heard of what was said about it. I'm not surprised. Just in a nutshell, I think, you know, where we are, particularly now with the advent of social media, there are a lot of people that the things that used to be said behind closed doors are now being said on, you know, people have keyboard courage. I personally would love to go back to the point where, you know, you can say it in my face and I can punch you in the face, you know, if I so choose to, you know, because I think
this podcast
a lot
does
of people
not advocate violence. As a pediatrician, we fight against violence. So this podcast is not about violence.
I don't advocate violence, but I do. You and I came up in the 80s and the 90s. And so, like, you couldn't say something about somebody and not have to confront them about it. You know, like, you know, if you bold enough, if you don't like me, that's one thing. But, you know, if you feel a certain way about me, say it to my face. Because I don't think that you're going to say it to my face the way you're going to type it in that computer. I just don't.
Yeah.
Now, if you bold enough to say it to my face, then we got a problem. But I just, you know, there's a part of me that wish we're trust me, we're never going back to the punching people out stage in life.
Well, no, me and my
like
was just talking about that. Like, you know, back in the day, we would fight, you know, maybe get in a little scrap. Now, you know, your girl ain't never fought, maybe one time.
Never.
But now I mean, you can't do that because people pull a gun on you or they'll pull a knife on you. And
Yeah.
so now it's different. You can't, we live in a different time. And so we have to tell our children that, be careful about what you say, be careful about, we've always been taught that, but now really extra special careful because you want your children to come home safely at night.
Of course. And, the thing that I always tell people, and I talk about this on the podcast too, freedom of speech ain't free. Everything comes at a cost. So, you can put your feelings out there on your personal page if you want to, but it might cost you your job. It might cost you your career. And if you feel like it's worth it, if you feel like that's the hill that you want to down, by all means, because you probably will, depending on who you are. And, I tell my kids, and I told them this from the time that I gave them cell phones. Once you press send, it's out there. There's no bringing it back. There's no deleting. Nothing ever gets deleted from the internet.
Right.
And so we have to be mindful about what it is that we say, what we like, what we don't like. And, if you don't like something, I mean, he could have easily kept that comment to himself, but I guess maybe he figured his little friend group on Facebook that nobody was officially, that he wasn't affiliated with anybody that would get that back to anybody from South Carolina State. I mean, so there were a lot of people in our alumni base that was very upset about those comments. Again, I didn't see it. I don't go looking for that kind of stuff on social media. I know that it's there.
Yeah. But, I just thought I'd bring it up since we were talking about alma maters, and I knew that happened for your
Of course. I know. I appreciate the question. We'll have to have you back on the podcast and we could talk sports because people don't know that Dr. Jimmell is a big sports fan. Like I said, she's big into fantasy football. She's a big Washington Commandos fan. she likes a few of the teams.
So unnecessary. Jaden Daniels is bad.
Y'all just beat the Giants, man.
Bad dude. Yeah, I know.
Y'all just beat my Giants. I'm tired.
Real salty. But who y'all got? Y'all got somebody good, don't y'all?
We played Dallas this weekend.
Yeah, no. Who did y'all get to replace Daniel Jones? Who y'all got now?
Oh, Russell Wilson? I mean, Russell Wilson, he might be 2 years younger than me, and I'm 52. So he looked real old.
I'm like, what are you doing out there? Yeah. He was just a Steelers last year. What are you doing over there? Y'all got to do better with your recruitment, man.
Here's the thing that you got to remember about the NFL. You keep playing it as long as they keep sending them checks out. So, I know CRA made a hit in a minute. Hey, man, go get them checks. Go get them checks.
Okay, we getting off now. Okay, so I didn't have nothing to do with that.
Listen, and the next time we come on, we got to talk about your boy Drake.
All right, yeah, we're really going now. Thank you for having me. Thank you, listeners. It's always a pleasure.
Yes.
Thank you for having me.
Yes. You guys, thank you guys for tuning in. As you can see, we had a great time. We want to thank you all for tuning in as you do each and every week. Remember, this 12 Kyle podcast drops every Thursday and every Sunday. You can follow me on all the socials, 12 Kyle across the board. Also, we have merch. If you're interested in 12 Kyle podcast merch, click the merch button in the description box there. You can buy 12 Kyle podcast t-shirts, hoodies, as well as coffee mugs. We got it for the low. Okay. Once again, that's going to do it for us, for my girl, Dr. Jimmell. I am your boy, 12 Kyle. We'll catch you guys next time. 5,000. Cheers.
Thanks again for listening to this episode of the 12 Kyle podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure that you hit the subscribe button and share this podcast with a friend who needs the 12 Kyle podcast in their life. Every listen, every download, and every share helps us grow. Thanks for being a part of the 12 Kyle podcast community. We appreciate your support. We will catch you next time. 5,000.